With the start of the regular season just days away, we take a look back at some of the top storylines surrounding the Commanders heading into the 2022 season. And fresh off his second consecutive 1,000-yard season, could this season be even scarier for wide receiver Terry McLaurin? Plus, we send London, Fletcher and Santana Moss down to the practice field this week to share their unique perspective on how the team is preparing for Jacksonville. And before the season starts, our guys share their bold predictions about the Commanders' upcoming season, and you don't want to miss it. Well, the 2022 team captains have been announced, 8 in total for the season. On the offensive side of the ball, quarterback Carson Wentz, wide receiver Terry McLaurin again, offensive tackle Charles Leno Jr. and tight end Logan Thomas, all earning the captaincies. On the defensive side of the ball, John Allen, Cole Holcomb, and Kendall Fuller were named captains, and punter Tressway representing the special teams. And welcome on into Command Center, Julie Donaldson with London, Fletcher and Santana Moss, both C's in their own right. I asked London how many times he was the captain. He goes, a lot. A lot.
Well, I am the captain.
You are. Well, look, here's what it is. It goes to your play on the field and your leadership in the locker room. You were the epitome of that.
Yeah, but it's more about the respect that you have of your teammates. So being a captain with Santana and just knowing that the guys, whether it's all my teammates, they looked up to me and felt like I represented them well. So being named captain means a lot.
So it's a big deal, Santana.
It's a big deal. I was a guy that was against being the captain. I had a ritual before the game. I didn't like to go out before the team went out. And so the one year I had the C on my chest, unfortunately I got hurt, and I told myself this is why I didn't want to be a captain. But but I love, being honored and, and be able to, be the leader of our offense, and being looked at in that way, because I think I handle things a little differently from what London did. I was more of a, by action than just,
vocal?
Vocal. London did both, but I was a guy that led by example instead.
We got you talking these days, though. In case there are injuries, the reserve captains would be Chase Young, Jeremy Reeves, and J.D. McKissick, named as alternates. Look, respect all those guys, but hopefully nobody gets injured to have to go that route. Now, perhaps the biggest storyline of the offseason was the addition of quarterback Carson Wentz. Washington traded for the former number 2 overall pick back in March. He's coming off a season in which he threw for over 3,500 yards with 27 touchdowns and just 7 INTs with the Colts. With Wentz penciled in to start Sunday's game against the Jags, he'll become the 6th different opening day starter for Washington over the last 6 seasons. Here is head coach Ron Rivera.
I think we have a guy that can help us. I mean, not to say we didn't have some quality quarterbacks. Again, we did some pretty good things when we had Alex Smith playing for us. I thought that was a great job by him. And again, I thought last year Taylor did the things that he needed to do to help us. But I think we have a guy that we can now establish and rally around and build off of, which is what we tried to do in the offseason, as far as making sure we had a stout offensive line to protect him and the playmakers. And again, I'll always refer to that because I think that's what you have to do. And now in our circumstances, in our situation, I think we have a guy that we can establish and build around.
Well, we know Wentz has the arm, and yet we've not really been able to see the entire offensive playbook because they're waiting for the Jacksonville Jags to do that, and probably even further into the season to really show what they've kind of cooking up their sleeve right there. What does Carson, though, Santana, from what you've seen so far, how does he make this offense different?
I think he brings a different arm talent than what we've seen in the past few years. I also believe that when you look at his career leading up to now, he's been a guy that found his guys in the pay dirt. So he's going to bring that to our game too. What we've been wanting for the past few years with our quarterback, scoring more touchdowns, especially in the red zone. Carson has found a way to do that. So I think we have a lot to look forward to, especially those guys out there who's going to be receiving those balls from him.
In London, you talk about that. Washington only averaged about 200 passing yards a game. That was 21st in the league. Do you anticipate those numbers kind of going up a little bit with Carson back there?
I absolutely anticipate them being higher. And they have to be. When you look at today's NFL, it's all predicated on the passing game and spreading teams out and spread defenses out and be able to make plays in the passing game. And we have, when you look at Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel being healthy, Logan Thomas and J.D. McKissick and some of the other guys we have at the receiving position and even running backs that can catch the ball, you have the ability to take advantage of the defense. The deep ball now becomes a real threat in this offense. Santana touched on it where he said bringing a different type of arm talent. Carson Wentz throws one of the best deep balls in the National Football League.
And they're saying even if he doesn't connect, it's still taking that defender away, and then it opens up a lot more maybe in the middle as well of the field. Santana, what is the biggest challenge facing him this year?
I think the biggest challenge would be just being able to know how to put one play behind yourself. You know, one of the things that you learn from being a playmaker, period, is something that we hear from most defensive backs. You got to have amnesia. And I think Carson can't get caught up into some of the bad plays that might occur. It's going to happen. It's football. You're not going to be perfect. You know, the things that you heard that came out of Philly when you see, those things being repetitive, hey, let that go. Can't worry about what they're throwing. Just do your job. So I think you have to put that behind them.
Always easier said than done,
It
right?
definitely
It
is.
really
Yeah.
is. It really is, because especially if you're a perfectionist, so you want everything to be perfect. No such thing, not anywhere, not even at this level. Now, on the opposite side of the ball, all eyes are going to be on the defensive line going into the season. And after finishing 2020 with the 6th most sacks in the league, well, Washington's defense fell 11 spots in 21, finishing with 38 total sacks, despite not having star defensive end Chase Young for the first 4 weeks of the season. Now, Coach Rivera is pleased with the group's overall growth.
I think the group has gotten better, and I think it's been incremental in terms of our first year to our second year, now to our third. I think each year has been a little bit of a process. Each year has been learning to break habits, learning to understand what's required of that position more so than anything else, and hopefully through repetition, when things get tough, things get hard, they'll revert to the techniques that we're working on and trying to show, as opposed to falling all the way back to what they did a few seasons ago.
All right, the defensive line, they showed that first year under head coach Ron Rivera that they were tough. They had 47 sacks, only just 38 last year. So they went from 6th most to falling a little bit down to 17th. How do they get back to that, London?
First and foremost, I think the coverage has to be better for them to have time to get after the quarterback. Last year, we gave up a lot of big plays in the passing game, especially early in the year, where it's hard to get to the quarterback when you have receivers running wide open. So by the back end being better on covering, that'll allow the defensive line more time to get to the quarterback. Now, with that being said, the defensive line has to be more disciplined in their pass rush lanes. We saw, when they don't do that, what can happen? Quarterbacks can find open lanes, make plays with their legs or by times, but they have to work better as a unit. I think they were humble last year, so they're coming into this season hungry.
I feel like Santana, we kept hearing big gap sound a lot, stay disciplined a lot last season. What have you seen, though, from the secondary that would allow them to have that time to maybe get to the quarterback?
I think being able to communicate a little better. I think that's one of the things that stood out. Me and Logan have been seeing that a lot throughout this preseason and throughout training camp. These guys are getting a little more familiar with each other and knowing and being able to speak up and say, hey, when they see something now, they're not so, enamored by it and trying to, do someone else's job. That stood out to me the most last year when you saw guys and you thought that we brought guys in to be a solid defender, and then you saw those guys in situations time and time again being beaten. So I think being able to communicate with each other will help that a lot.
And from a communication standpoint, especially on the back end, it's so important to do that pre-snap where you come out in the formation, whether Tana, I remember they used to always run a lot of bunch of formations. You have to communicate, hey, how are you gonna work these different route combinations? So seeing that, therefore you won't have guys running wide open. That communication, that's why it's so important to have on the back end of the defense.
We keep hearing it's a nice little marriage they have to have together, the
Definitely.
D-line, the back end,
Yes.
because without them working together, your defense is going to have holes and you're going to have issues.
Too many.
And it's going to be a long season, which we've seen before. Hopefully not this season, though, as we get our first shot against the Jags. Well, this season we're celebrating our 90th with Dominion National, and we have a few of our newest members of the 90 Greatest sitting right here with us today. So exciting. Last week's Welcome Home Luncheon, we unveiled the 10 newest members. Both London and Santana were some of the top vote getters out there. Huge honor and recognition for all the hard work that you guys put in. What does this mean to you, Santana?
It's great. I think it's great to be, I guess, rewarded for all your hard work. I was one of those guys that I've always thought about just going out there and handling my business and let all the other stuff come to me that's going to come. I never played to have accolades. I feel like they come with it comes with the sport, but it's great to just know that people view you as one of those guys.
When you think about this franchise and it being 90 years, the 90th year anniversary of this team. And I mean, there's been thousands of players who've played in the burgundy and gold, and to be considered one of the 90 greatest players to play for this franchise, it means a lot. I know when I was coming to the stadium, you look up and you see all those names up there. Hell, I wanted my name up there. I don't even lie. So,
Your name is. We got to get Tana's name in the Ring of Fame as well.
Yeah.
Put that up there. Both deserving as well. Congratulations. Fans, you got it right here. And I'm very honored to sit next to both of you guys and work with you here each and every day, taking your professionalism to the next step. The next step, though, is going down to the field. How about that? We're going to send London and Santana down to practice to show you how the team is preparing for their season opener against the Jaguars, giving you inside access, folks. And fresh off his second consecutive 1,000-yard season, find out why wide receiver Terry McLaurin is poised for another strong season for Washington. More Command Center is next.
Senior writer Zach Selby here to give you 3 things you need to know about the captain himself, Terry McLaurin, as he enters his 4th season in the NFL. Number 1, he's one of the best receivers in the 2019 draft class. This shouldn't come as a surprise, but McLaurin has been putting up exceptional numbers compared to the rest of his draft class. He's second with 222 receptions, second with 3,090 receiving yards, and fifth with 16 receiving touchdowns. And on top of that, he's done it all with 8 different starting quarterbacks. And with Carson Wentz coming up next, that is sure to increase even further. Number 2, he's a terror for the NFC East. They call him Scary Terry for a reason. McLaurin has played 16 career games against NFC East opponents, essentially a full NFL season versus the Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles. The combined numbers in those games would amount to a Pro Bowl caliber season for a receiver. 89 receptions, 1,227 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. Now that he's in Washington for the long term, he can continue to give defensive backs nightmares. And number 3, he's been one of the best receivers Washington has had in decades. McLaurin has had 3 straight seasons in which he has led Washington in receiving. The last Commanders player to lead the team in receiving yards for 3 straight seasons, Santana Moss. Just saying. He also became the first player since Henry Ellard from 94 to 96 to have consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, placing him in the top 15 on the Commanders' all-time list in receiving yards. McLaurin is geared up to enter his 4th season so he can continue adding to what is already an impressive resume.
As head coach Ron Rivera prepares to enter his 3rd season in Washington, he hopes to start it out on a high note. Over the past 8 seasons, he has won 5 of his season openers. But to get that success, well, it starts early on in the practice week. And to see how they're preparing for the Jaguars, well, we sent London and Santana down to the field. This is your FedEx Field Pass, where now meets next.
Thanks, Julie. London, we was talking a little earlier about, the competition that we got coming up this weekend with the Jacksonville defensive front. And one of the things that stood out about our offensive line, that they got to bring their hard hat and their lunch pail. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to seeing, what we got, as far as our interchangeable group and going up against D-line that probably not getting enough recognition?
When you look at this Jacksonville Jaguars front, they're a 3-4 defense. They got some guys, especially at the outside linebackers. They're gonna present some problems. Josh Allen, not the quarterback in Buffalo, but Josh Allen, the outside linebacker for them. He can rush the passer. He had 10.5 sacks as a rookie a couple years ago, 7.5 last year, and then they drafted Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall, another outside linebacker, heavy-handed, set the edge. So our offensive line, they'll be challenged in blocking this defensive front of the Jaguars. They also, Todd Bowles is Mike Caldwell, who's the defensive coordinator, is a Todd Bowles disciple, and he loves to bring pressure. So we'll have to deal with their blitz packages. So we'll have to be on top of our games when it comes to pass blocking. But for me, Tana, it always starts in the run game.
Yeah.
You see these guys working on their run blocks and getting after the defensive lineman. That's where you set the tone, is in the run game.
What are some of the things that stood out to you just from the preseason alone from our offensive linemen? Just like last season, these guys have the many bodies that's lining up week in and week out already. We didn't want to see that that early into the season, but they show that they can do it. What are some of the things that stands out that gives you that kind of, hey, you know what, we can rest assured that we're going to have the next guy stand up when it comes to what we have as a group?
I was impressed with the guys, the depth of the offensive line. And when you think about the game when we played against the Kansas City Chiefs, where we had a bunch of guys down from the offensive line standpoint. I think we may have only had one starter playing that game, who was one projected starter. And the guys who played in that game, who, were the second stringers and third stringers in some cases, they played well, and they held up in that ball game. And the quarterbacks had a lot of time to pass the football. And they did a great job being effective in passing. And when it came to pass block, this drill they're doing right now, Tana, this is where they're working on those combination blocks where you're double teaming the guy, getting moving, then you come off to the linebacker. This is called a combo block. These guys, I've never seen it where the guys start off on their knees. This is teaching them to get low. Look at it, be moving and getting pushed.
Be able to use their balance, and that goes to show you how agile these guys are. We have some guys that really can get out here and run. We saw the drill before that. We wanted to see a little more of it, but we don't want to stay too long. So now the running backs are joining the party, and this is a group that we want to talk about too. Let's kind of get this out there, because this is something that I was anticipating, just seeing the young fella, that we had, man. B-Rob had a tremendous camp. And we kind of all speculated that maybe he was going to get the nod to be the first guy out there this week. Okay, so that's behind us. We know that, he had an incident, and unfortunately he won't be playing with us right now. But we still have two familiar guys that can carry the load. We have AG, which we all have a lot of confidence in. We know the one thing that kind of lingers and that hangs over his hat, but he gets a chance now to put that behind him. What do you think about the opportunity for AG and for McKissick this week?
It's going to be a great opportunity for those guys, to AG. He's used to being the number one back, so it's not a situation where all of a sudden he has to adapt to a new role. McKissick, we know what he can do in the passing game in terms of catching balls out of the backfield, but there'll be opportunities for him to run the ball more and just regular first and down situations also.
Yeah, and that's something I'm looking forward to. I mean, we had a chance to talk to McKissick earlier this camp, and one of the things he said he wants to kind of put out there that he's been working on, his between the tackle role and running the football, which I said years ago, the first time I saw him, that for him to be a receiver, he does that well. So I'm looking forward to that. We have to wrap everything up. So back to you, Julie. We appreciate it.
Good stuff, guys, and this is some really good stuff. The team made a roster move this week, signing 8-month-old English Black Labrador Retriever Mando to the team. He's going to make his debut at the season opener on Sunday against the Jaguars, and upon his completion of training of canines for Warriors, Mando will be paired with a veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, and/or military sexual trauma. Coming up next, fans are excited to see the regular season debut of the Commanders, but who do our experts think will be the first one to find the end zone as a Commander? We'll share when we return. Earlier this week, the Commanders announced that Ryan Kerrigan has been named assistant defensive line coach. The franchise's all-time sack leader spent 10 seasons as a player with the Burgundy and Gold. Despite all the success Kerrigan had as a player on the field, he's looking forward to the challenge of being an NFL coach.
Well, I think the time that I'll be able to put into watching each guy will allow me to give them better feedback than when I was as a player. Because as a player, I'm watching mostly myself and watching the guys that I'm going to be going against and thinking about things from that standpoint. But now it's like I'm watching guys and it's like, okay, how's Sweat match up with this guy? How's James match up with this guy? John Payne, all these guys, and so it's it's all about them. It's not about me anymore, and that's one of the things Coach Rivera told me as well. And when I initially met with him, he's like, coaching is you're serving the players. You're of service to the players, and so that's kind of the mindset I'm taking into it.
Of course, look, Kerrigan spent all his time watching himself. Now he's got to watch everybody else, make sure they get better. Could you coach in the league? You could, but do you want to?
But do I want to? No, I want to stick to what I'm doing on the middle school level.
And playing golf a lot when you can too. What about you, Santana?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat with him. Keep me away from him right now. I'm enjoying my time. I love it.
Yeah, that coaching staff is in at the crack of dawn, and they don't stay until the wee hours of the night as well. Let's get to some fill in the blanks here for this season. Santana, let me start with you. The prediction for team MVP is?
Terry McLaurin. We have a lethal passer, and I think he's going to put up big numbers, so Terry will be my MVP.
I'm going to go with Carson Wentz. He's going to spread the football around to all those weapons we have on offense.
Yeah, I'm going to like both of those answers. How about this? The breakout candidate player is London.
Jamin Davis. He had a disappointing rookie season. He's going to have a great year in his second season.
I'm all in on that.
And I'm back to the offense. It'll be Carson Wentz. I think he's going to put all those naysayers behind him and go out and have a phenomenal season.
And Santana, let me come to you for this one. All excited on this. The first regular season Commanders touchdown will be scored by
Antonio Gibson. I think Antonio Gibson now getting the chance to really show these guys what he made of. I mean, we understand what he went through. AG would be able to go out there and get it done.
How about Curtis Samuel?
Okay.
I like
We've been
Curtis.
waiting a long time for that
I like
one.
Curtis Samuel getting in the end zone.
We do. We've been waiting a while for that to happen. Who's going to lead the team in sacks this season, London?
I'm going to go with Montez Sweat. I think he will.
Yeah, I second that. Montez.
He's had like 21 sacks in his first 3 seasons.
He's been doing the same.
Not too shabby by him as well. How about this? Who's going to lead the team in tackles this season, London?
I'm going to go with Cole Holcomb. He led him last year. I
Yeah.
think he'll lead the
London
team in
is
tackles
cheating off
again.
my paper. I have Cole Holcomb down there
Yeah.
too, leading.
He
in
plays the
tackles.
middle linebacker. The position,
Yeah.
it requires that.
How
doubt.
about this? One final one. It will take how many wins to reach the playoffs for Washington this season, London?
I think it's going to be 11.
Wow.
11 wins, just to reach
Even with
the
the wild
playoffs?
card?
I think
Ah,
so.
I think they're going to have 10 wins, but I said take only 9 wins for them to reach the playoffs.
there you go.
So-
We'll come back at the end of the season. Thanks for joining us on Command Center.